Once again, my name is Janet Pounder, and I'm the chair of the Speakers Committee of Grey Highlands Probus. And today we are very delighted to have Neil Aitchison. Aitchison. I said it right just a second ago, and now you guys made me nervous. Anyway, Neil has come up from Waterloo, which was very kind of him on a sunny day, and he is going to be our presenter. So, Neil is a busy guy. He is really busy. He's a popular speaker, he's an MC, he's an actor, he's a former broadcast executive and radio personality, and he is a senior manager of market development for a construction company. So he doesn't quit. He previously spent 6 years as the Director of Development for Drayton Entertainment, one of Canada's most successful theatre companies. And Neil's been involved in a host of community events and activities and associations. He is a charter member of the Kitchener Westmount Rotary Club and has 3 times been named a Paul Harris Fellow, Rotary's highest award for community service. And in November 2002, he was the recipient of the Queen's Golden Jubilee Medal, and in 2012 was presented with the Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal, having made a significant contribution to Canada at home and abroad. The City of Waterloo named him a recipient of the Waterloo Award for Outstanding Community Service in December 2015, and the next year, Kitchener Lions named him the Kitchener Waterloo Citizen of the Year. And I've heard from many people who have heard him speak just how entertaining he is. So I think we're in for a treat, and thank you, Neil, for coming.
Thank you, Janet. Good afternoon, everybody. Listening to that introduction reminds me of how old I am. And as you can imagine, I get lots of introductions, various places, and that one definitely was the most recent. It was a beautiful drive up here. I'm a small town boy. I come from Harrison, Ontario originally. And so it was fun to come up through Arthur and Con and Cedarville and all the stops along the way. My little brother used to be the United Church minister in Toronto at Islington United, but when he was student minister, he was at Con and Cedarville. And I remember when we went to Chivery when he got married, and they were in Con, and we snuck in to the upstairs of that old United Church manse, and there he was with a tennis racket swatting down bats. The old place. Anyhow, it's very nice to be here. I recently just was inducted a week ago, or a couple weeks ago, into a Kitchener Conestoga Probus Club. And so now I'm a Probian as well as a Rotarian. And I always thought it'd be fun to be in Probus because you don't have to sell tickets. You don't have any attendance requirements. You just come and visit and have fun. And meet nice people and hear perhaps various types of speakers. And I knew you were visiting when I hit the bottom of the stairs. There was a lot of racket up there. That's a good sign. And I was just wondering how many here, I'm going to tell you today a little bit about my life with Drayton Entertainment. How many here have been to a Drayton Entertainment production? Wonderful. Let's see those who haven't. Well, we have to work on you. Anyway, I am a founding board member of Drayton Entertainment back in 1991. Alex Mustakis, who is the artistic director, and I were friends. And we did Kitchener-Waterloo musical productions and Kitchener-Waterloo Gilbert and Sullivan Society things together. We're 12 years difference in age. And I always got the loud guy with the hat that role, the character, comedy type character. I never got to kiss the girl. And he was always the lead doing some big sing-along. And then he became a director. And after he graduated from Laurier, he went off to London. He went to Laurier to satisfy his Greek Cypriot father, who said, you have to have a business degree. So he got his business degree at Laurier, and then he went to London to pursue his interest, and that was a master's in theatre arts administration. And all the time he was in London, England, he and I corresponded by pen and paper. It wasn't email. And he said, when I come home, I'd like to still sing and direct, but I'd like to produce and run some theater events. And I said, well, I know where there's a place in Drayton. He said, what's Drayton? No, I said, where is Drayton? And it's a little village on crossroads, not on a major road, but it's only 15 minutes from Harriston. And we all went to the same district secondary school in Palmerston, as we like to say it, at Norwell District Secondary School. And so as a result of that, you get to know everybody from Harriston, Palmerston, Clifford, Mount Forest, Drayton, Moorfield, and all the little communities that went to that central high school. So I knew the people up there, and I said, I'll introduce you. So we went to a town council meeting, and I said, this guy will put your village on the map. Give him the theater. It's sitting here empty. It's a 1902 opera house. Beatrice Lilly performed in it one time, but it sat empty, and it was home now to pigeons and bats. And so the town agreed, and they gave us the inside. They said, we'll take care of the outside. And they fixed the roof, and we cleaned up the bird dirt, and we scrubbed the wooden seats by hand. We got a bunch of volunteers, and we put on our first season in 1991. Three shows, 3 weeks each, but a professional schedule of 8 shows a week. And Alex knew where the actors were in the province, and he brought them all in. And I was in the radio business then, and I was general manager of CFCA and CKKW Radio in Kitchener. And we became his major sponsor. Instead of giving him money, we gave him airtime. And our demographic was this demographic, 55 plus. And that's who his demographic was. I said it'll be a perfect match. So we went on the air, and I wrote the scripts for the announcers. It had to be really credible, believable. This wasn't just another, buy your car from me. It was, you want to go to Drayton and see this professional theater at affordable prices with free parking. And it worked. We sold out the first 3 seasons before the season opened. Wow. And that was really quite an accomplishment. And I wouldn't let the announcers talk about much until they went there and experienced it themselves. And it was really a slow start back then with the wooden seats. We had an old guy in Drayton who went, the first winter, he said, those damn seats are so hard. So all winter long, he made cushions. Foam cushions, he sewed them in material. We had a big stack of them out in the hallway. At the top of the stairs, the opera house is on the 2nd floor. And we put a little basket out, and someone said, charge $2 a cushion. We said, no, we'll just put donations. We got more than $2 a cushion. The first year and a half, we got $100,000 in that little basket. People loved what they saw on stage, but they didn't like the feel of those wooden seats. And then we got busy finding sponsors and people helping. And we put an elevator in. The old house next door was rack and ruin, so we tore that house down. We used the same yellow bricks to build an elevator tower to match that original 1902 building. You'd never know there's been an addition put on it. And people in wheelchairs and walkers loved the elevators because there was quite a hike up. And then we got a seat campaign going, and we added beautiful cushioned red seats. And it is a gem of a place now. It's a 400-seat venue with exquisite sound, pressed tin ceiling, and it's just a beautiful old place. And what was the council chambers and the library downstairs now became our lounge and our box office and some dressing room space. And we even kicked the Kinsman out of the basement. We used that for more dressing rooms. And eventually we had the whole place. First year, 1991, our budget was $99,000. We had Alex Mastakis and one full-time employee, the former clerk treasurer of the village, Jean. She came to help. She also became a wardrobe mistress. She became a curtain puller. She's an amazing volunteer. And we're the only theater company in Canada that I know of that has never been in the red. We have paid our own bills, sold our tickets and our advertising, and left profit in the bank every year since 1991. And theater is traditionally not a very productive business. It's an inefficient business. You build sets and costumes and then you discard them. Well, Alex always was quick to remind us how happy he was that he went to the business school as well. And he reminded us that the word show business, half the word show business is business. You gotta run it like a business or it ain't gonna last. And now, all these 31 or 2 years later, we're still cooking along and have never been in the red yet. And the budget this year is over 13 million. We have 7 theaters. And I can give you a little bit of a history how we grew, but we went from Drayton to St. Jacobs, the little schoolhouse theater in St. Jacobs. Then we went to King's Wharf Theater in Penetanguishene. Then we went to St. Jacobs Country again, and we turned an old winery that went broke. It was only a 5-year-old building, and we converted it to another 400-seat theater. Then what else? Oh, and Grand Bend came along, the Huron Country Playhouse, and they said, we're not doing very well here. They had 2 theaters, Playhouse, the big one, 600 feet, and the small one, 100 seats. And we converted that now to a 400 and a 650. And they said, if you take over our debt, we'll give it to you. They owed $400,000. We retired the debt the first year, paid the parking lot, and it's been a sellout ever since. And people like quality, and they love free parking. And a lot of people from Toronto are now discovering the Drayton Entertainment way, and they're saying, my gosh, it's just like professional. You say it is professional, but for $40 a ticket and free parking. So it's very good. And then our last theater was in Cambridge, where we built a new head office because we had grown too much. And I worked for a construction company that built the theater and have done the renovations. It's always been who do we know. And it's a beautiful 500-seat theater called the Hamilton Family Theater in Cambridge. And the reason it's named Hamilton, we had a man named John Hamilton and his wife who have a cottage up near King's Wharf Theater, and they attended it in the summer. They came in on their boat and tied up on the shores of Discovery Harbor and walked right into the theater and loved it. And they found out we were having a new theater built in Cambridge, and they said, can we help? Yes. They gave us $1 million to put their name on it. And it's been spectacular how we've had people come out of the woodwork. We got a call one day from a lawyer in London who said, are you the people from Drayton? I'm on the board. And I said, yes. I was the fundraising guy. And well, we had a man and his wife dearly departed, and they left $100 and some thousand to the theater. We never even knew their names, but they said they've been coming for years and loved it. So it's amazing how things grow like that. Now we're one of the major employers of actors and technicians and set designers and musicians. The peak of the season will have over 800 people working for us, which is quite a payroll. And it's amazing how much fun it is. Now, I got into this as like I say, with the character roles, I was the sergeant of police in what's that British Gilbert and Sullivan play? Somebody help me.
We're all the same.
I was a fence. I was the head jailer, I was the vicar, and I was always the guy with a hat who was a bit of a clown. And then Alex and I sat down one day, and we created a character called, we were going to do a show called Sorry, I'm Canadian. And we had a Mountie character, a little overweight, rural kind of a Mountie. And we had to come up with a name. And that was way back when Norman Inkster was the commissioner of the RCMP, and Archie Bunker was big on TV. And so we named him Constable Archibald F. Inkster. And of course they screwed it up and called me Finkster. But that was the beginning. We started with this show, and I was the Mountie who would come out and kind of conduct a little cross-country tour of our country. And we'd start in the West Coast, and we'd work our way east. And I'd talk about Vancouver or Victoria or Yukon or whatever, and then we'd have musicians on stage, a band who would sing a song or do a number from each of those provinces or cities that I had touched on. And then I'd come back, and I had various costumes. I'd come out in Alberta, I was a cowboy, and in Saskatchewan, I was a farmer. In Newfoundland, I had a yellow slicker on, a fishing pole and a pail of bait. And anyway, people really liked it. People loved it because it was all Canadian, all the music was Canadian, and we waved our flag proudly, and they sold out to the walls, those shows. So after a year or two, he said, we better do another one. What are we going to do now? So he and I would get a jar of very good single malt and sit in the sunroom at the cottage and write a show. And if we laughed, it went in. And we did Canadian Loony. That was when the money came out from paper to coin. We did Canadian Toonie. We did Canadian Legends. We did Canadian Stuff. And we did 8 shows in all. And last year we did Sorry, I'm Canadian too. T-O-O. And then we corrected the spelling and said sorry. And you know, I did 8 shows a week for 6 weeks last summer, 3 weeks in Drayton and 3 weeks at a time machine. And they sold out very, very well considering we were in a COVID period. So it's really been something. And this COVID business has not been a lot of fun, has it? No one has not. And you know, they say the spread of COVID was based on 2 factors. 1, how dense the population is, and 2, how dense the population is. It just didn't make sense. One province would be locked down, and the next one would be wide open. So that's kind of like having a designated peeing section in your swimming pool. It just didn't work. And that's why this thing lasted 3 years. Mind you, there was one advantage to being locked down at the cottage. I have a cottage in Port Elgin where we stayed, in spite of the fact that a big sign up said, stay home. But we went there, we owned it, we paid taxes, we thought that was a nice place to sit and watch the sunset on Lake Huron and kind of sit it out. We never would have guessed it would be this long. And it was a long old haul, but the big advantage was that we were able to catch up on all the things I've done wrong for the last 50 years. Now, when we got near the end, my wife whispered in my ear, she said, now that things are opening up again, wouldn't it be nice if you took me out to one of those restaurants that prepare the meal right there? So I did, I took her to Subway. Yes, we had a lot of fun. Now, mind you, we went 3 years without a sniffle or a cough or a cold. We had 5 shots, we were doing everything, and then 6 weeks ago, we both got it. Oh, I forgot what it was like to be sick. I was afraid I was going to live. A few days was brutal. And now it's back, and so we're having fun again. And we went to the doctor, and he said, now that you've had the virus plus the shots, he said, you can go anywhere you like to. And make sure you get the 6th one, because the variant keeps changing. So I said, okay, we'll go for the next. Anyway, we have had a lot of time over many years of COVID, but it feels like we lost a lot of time. And this Drayton stuff, when he called me last year, I thought, yes, let's do something. Even though we had reduced seating and half seating and so on, every seat we had available sold. And it was really good to reintroduce live theater after such a lockdown. And, but I said to him, now we have to write new material. We use some old stuff, but had to write new stuff with what's going on in the world. And you know, one of my tricks was to dig around, and there's no really new material. You just borrow somebody else's and rewrite it. I said, what would they say? If you steal from one person, it's plagiarism. If you steal from many, it's research. But then I had a friend in the business years ago, and I called him. His name was Dave Broadfoot. Many of you will remember his name. He was an amazing Canadian icon, and he earned his living proving you didn't have to go to the States. And he traveled across this country, big theaters, little theaters, community halls, and packed it. And he was a Mountie as well. He knew what we were trying to create. And he and his little dog Cuddles, and he just wrote some amazing stuff for me because he knew I was going to do all these provinces and cities. And I'll just give you an example. In Victoria, he said, the magnificent provincial legislative building right there on the harbor. And oh, what a sight at night. There's hundreds and hundreds of lights on, but nobody's home. And he had stuff on Vancouver, and then we'd go up north to Yukon. And I walked into a place in Yukon, a little diner, and I asked the lady what the special was. She said, caribou tongue sandwich. Ooh, I said, I couldn't possibly eat anything that came out of an animal's mouth. Well, what do you want then? I said, give me a fried egg. And that's what we wanted, was to laugh. And we laughed, and he was phoning me. He'd say, here's one, try this one. And he'd tell it to me on the phone, and I'd rewrite it a little. I said, well, that's beautiful. I said, fax that to me. He said, I don't have a fax. I have to go down to the dry cleaner at the corner of the fax. Well, and then he said, what's wrong with a good old-fashioned letter? I said, nothing. So and I'm so happy today I have a collection of letters from Dave Broadfoot with all this original material. And we were able to just move stuff along and rewrite. When you go to Alberta, he said, oh, Alberta, there's such fun there. They hate laughing at themselves. Peace River, Alberta, that's the home base of the first farmers in history to grow frozen vegetables. He said, Alberta is the province that gave us Stockwell Day. Now, when Americans ask, he loves to poke a little fun at Americans. When Americans ask, what's Stockwell Day? You tell them that's the day Canadians go to the liquor store to get ready for the long winter. And he said, of course, Alberta's home of country music. Who can ever forget that great hit? It's hard to miss you if you won't go away. I'm so lonesome without you, it's like you're still here. He says, my favorite, it's hard to kiss the lips at night that chewed your arse out all day long. And then we go to Saskatchewan. words of that great explorer, Leveron Gray, when he first laid eyes on that magnificent expanse of land. He said, "Maudit que c'est plat." In English, is it ever flat, eh? Saskatchewan, where you could watch your dog run away for 3 days. Moose Jaw, a city named after Brian Mulrooney. And we just carried on. And then, of course, in Alberta, they do country music. Got that Saskatchewan, they sing some of those great old Stomp T, Tom, Saskatchewan, and then we get to Manitoba with Burton Cummings with The Who. Manitoba, it's so cold there, the politicians keep their hands in their own pockets. And when we get to Ontario, there's a ton of stuff in Ontario, because it's a third of the population of Canada lives in Ontario. So we would open up with a Gordon Lightfoot number, and oh boy, the people love him. And how appropriate was it that we honored him every time. And we did Gordon Lightfoot music every time. And we got to know him, we got to meet him a few times. And he was a lovely Canadian. And you know, he made his living like Dave Bradfoot did. He sang about Canada. He wrote about Canada. And of course, it took him 2 decades to be recognized in the States. They were stubborn down there. But finally, he's toured the world. And here we just lost him on May the 1st. And of course, Ontario, I think where you find many small towns that have a Burger King, a bowling alley, a pizza shack, all owned and operated by the same undertaker. And of course, I had to touch on Harrison. And I thought, my hometown, population 2,000. It just seems, it's never changed since I was a kid. It's always 2,000. It seems every time a baby is born, some guy leaves town. The honeymoon suite in Harrison is a 67 Chevy up on blocks. I always tell my friends, if you ever find out you only got a year to live, you want to do it in Harrison because it will feel like a lifetime. And then there's Stratford, the home of the great Shakespearean Festival, where you may be greeted by an usher who would say, "Do you know where yous are sitting?" Shakespeare was English, that was Canadian. And we moved them to Ingersoll, Tillsonburg, London, home of the great well from which half of Canada's culture flows, Labatt's. London, because of its location, has no choice but to compete for tourists with Ingersoll. And then we'd go up north, and we'd go down to the east, up to Barrie. And I had stuff in my head from every town, and the beauty of it was that a portion of it was true, because Dave Broadfoot had performed in every one of those communities. And we go down east now, and we go to Kingston, home of Confederation. It was here John A. Macdonald proclaimed Confederation. When he regained consciousness, he apologized. And then, not far from Kingston is the town of Gananoque. An American couple drove up over the border and turned onto the Thousand Islands Parkway, and there they saw the sign, Gananoque. So they drove into town, stopped at the local donut shop and said, "What's the right way to pronounce the name of this place?" And she said, "Tim Hortons." We Canadianized it all the way. And of course, we get to Quebec, we do Celine Dion, we do Leonard Cohen, Hallelujah. It's a got beautiful music, and people were touched. We had many goosebump moments just with the music alone. I'd go off and come back, and the musicians would carry a beautiful performance. We had at least 5 musicians. One time we had 7, and they played multiple instruments, and all professionals, and they loved it. And every once in a while I'd go off my script. That's my tendency, is to ad-lib a little bit. And that would really keep the band alert. And the director would stop in every once in a while to see how our show was going, and he'd catch me ad-libbing, and he'd say, feel free to do it like we rehearsed it. But you know, when by the time we were working our way east, you could just feel the anticipation from the audience, because you knew now we were going to do some down east fiddling and stepping and that good maritime stuff. And we did, and they loved it. And we worked our way to Halifax, home of the Blue Nose, the only ship named after an alcoholic. And then there's Newfoundland and Labrador. It's a province named after 2 dogs. Then I had an Aunt Lucille who lived in St. John's, Newfoundland, and she asked me to be the executor of her will. And I said, okay, I went, and I was looking over her will, and I said, what's this part here? And she said, yes, I want that for sure. She said, I want 6 female pallbearers. And I said, how come? She said, well, if the men weren't willing to take me out when I'm living, they're sure as hell not taking me out. And that kind of Canadian, we had Newfie humor, we had French humor. I spoke French many times. There's Jean d'Arc. That's French, that means there's no light in the men's room. And whatever came to our fevered mind worked. And believe me, we've had a lot of fun over the years. And they had t-shirts with the Mountie on, we sold them. We sold Canadian flags with sorry, I'm Canadian. And of course we got into a big rant at the end. Why is it Canadians say sorry all the time, eh? We say sorry more often than we say hey. Like when some stranger bumps into us, we say sorry. I see it every day when I'm at Costco or wherever. People say sorry, sorry, sorry. People taking their seat in the theater, sorry, sorry. People back into an elevator. Someone has gas. Someone said sorry. And that was a whole rant I did on my own about being sorry. It was a 10-minute rant, and how important it is to be able to laugh at ourselves. And I go through the whole thing about only in Canada, and I have all these lines about being only in Canada. Only in Canada do we feel it's safe to drive out on the thin ice, to put up a sign that says danger thin ice. And so on and so on. I could stay here a long time. I've probably worn out my welcome already. Let me see if I can find one little piece of that just to share some with you. When did I start? 2? Okay, I'll quit. And then we're going to have some questions, because people like to ask questions about drinking. Well, there's Prince Edward Island. It's the home of Edward Gessner. Is the man who invented kerosene lamps and kerosene. And that lamp went on to become the symbol of Canadian manhood. It's not very bright, constantly being turned down, and when needed most, goes out. Now here, what's to be sorry about? Canada, with a defense policy to make every citizen proud. We're the only country in the world that nobody's afraid of. Not a country with a big army, but a huge force of volunteer reserves who are ready to serve their country on the second Thursday of each month. We're a tremendous mix of ancestral backgrounds and blended mass of various cultures and religions. We have a tremendous 2 official languages and reams of bilingual government paper to prove it. We have multi-tiered governments, municipal, federal, provincial, regional. We love our governments, and all our various little town councils and fire departments. Figure that out. And we even have the Senate. No one living in the shadow, no longer are we living in the shadow of our American neighbors when it comes to music, acting, and writing. Canada, where vicious amateur boxers are allowed to wear hockey uniforms. Canada, where Canadians keep a broom in the trunk of their car. If they ever get stuck, they can go curling. As you drive across the country, you see signs that say moose, night danger. We're the only country in the world that warns our moose not to go out after dark. Canada, where liquor stores are owned by the government. Yes. So we believe we should drink. The more we drink, the more we're helping our country. In Canada, where you admit you've never seen an aurora borealis, but you know it's a serious skin condition. Where we're free. We're free to turn right on red, slow down on green, go like hell on M. That's Canada. Where washrooms are called, they're starting to call them restrooms. Yet, how rarely you ever hear anyone say, hurry up in there, I'm tired. If I don't get some rest pretty soon, I'm worse. Sorry. Canada, where people believe a penile implant is a stool pigeon in a federal prison. Rest of the country, and I went into the whole thing about how we feel the struggle against the dreaded COVID virus. And we still have to wash our hands. But we're a strong people. We think minus 10 degrees Celsius is mild weather. We're people who are not afraid of the words homo milk. Toronto, I forgot Toronto. It's a diverse city where conservative Jews and Protestant Gentiles set aside their differences and share the same Portuguese Catholic cleaning lady. Toronto is a city of loyal hockey fans who demand nothing of their team and get it. Anyway, this journey across the country, and then I say, well, what are we supposed to be sorry about? Are you sorry? No. Are you sorry? No, I'm not sorry. The band, are you sorry? No, I'm not sorry either. Why? Because I am Canadian. Music came up with, oh, Canada. It's very goosebumps every time. And you know how well it works when the audience jumps to their feet before we even do our final curtain call. And it's been such fun. And I always say, I hope you've enjoyed taking this tour across the country with me. And people say, yeah. And then I said, just in case we ever do it again, we're going to finish with Don Messer's theme song. And that was Till We Meet Again. And then every time we played it, the audience all sang along. Without having words up, without any kind of prompting. We'll meet again. And boy, it was amazing to hear 400 people singing. So that's a little bit about how I got into this theater business. And 31 years later, Drayton finally is ready to go again. And this year, when we opened up, because this is the first year in 3 years where we're going to have full capacity tickets on sale for every venue. And on the first day, and by the way, over COVID, we got really busy. We tried to keep as many of our technicians and the carpenters working. We painted and fixed and cleaned up all 7 theaters. We went around all of them regularly flushing toilets and turning lights on, making sure the place was still working. And we created a whole new computerized ticket system. So now you can go online and book tickets, but people still like to phone our box office because they like to talk to them. And our box office people really like to talk to our customers. And they tell us what they want and what they need and where they like to sit. And we can go on the computer now and say, oh, hi, Mrs. Jones, last year you sat in row L. Would you like those same 2 seats again on that? Oh, yeah. And come early, it's free parking. And I do the voiceover at the theater welcome, tell people to turn their phones off and blah, blah, blah. And don't forget that smooth and delicious premium ice cream. And when we started doing that, our ice cream sales jumped by 15%. Wow. Just like that. Haagen-Dazs, lovely. We only sell the best. And we learned as we went, we used to have drumsticks, popsicles, Haagen-Dazs, this, that, the other. And the dear sweet little old ladies would come up and they said, do you like these? No. Do you like these? No. Do you want one of these? No. People in the line wouldn't get a chance to go through. So now we only have Haagen-Dazs, caramel, nut, and plain. And we stack them up on the bar 6 or 8 minutes before the show, the intermission starts. So they're just starting to soften up enough to eat without going crumbly. And we have little tables all the way around the room in every theater with numbers on, so you can pre-order your drinks or pre-order your ice cream, and when you come down to intermission, oh, there, that was a trick you learned in England. And there's your stuff ready for the 20-minute break. And that also helps the bottom line when people buy treats. And it's been an amazing experience working with them and for them. I was a founding board member, and I quit 21 or whatever years ago, and I became director of marketing and development because that's when we were growing exponentially, and that's when my radio career ended one day when someone from Toronto came to Kitchener and bought the place. And we were no longer owned by Electra Home. And the TV station and the 2 radio stations, suddenly all the senior people were, they call it restructuring. We called it firing. And so then I had to become a different person, and I turned down the radio business just as I think it's a good time to get out of it. And I reinvented myself. And I'm still going along now. I'm going to be 76 in July, and I've offered to retire several times, and they said, no, we're keeping an office here for you. So I still have an office and a computer and a phone. And it's been a great life, and I don't know what I'm going to be when I grow up yet. But I've 16 years with a construction company, and people say, what do you know about construction? I said, well, I'm a concrete specialist. Just make something up and carry on. What I did was I brought along the brochure for this season, and I brought a box of them, and should anybody like them. Now, for example, I opened up, they were going to do the show, it was beautiful, the Carole King musical. We saw it on Broadway, it was spectacular. And we have all the best performers. A Few Good Men, that's the one where Nicholson and Tom Cruise. And we had to stop that. We only got 3 or 4 shows in last 3 years ago, and then COVID shut us down. So it's back. And one of the big stars from Stratford is the Nicholson character. And Bitter Girl, the musical, Buddy Holly, and the crooner. There's a guy, a young fellow we discovered in Grand Bend. His name is Michael Van Hevel, and he was the son of one of our air conditioning sponsors. And I always, on opening night, gave all our sponsors invitations and tickets to the theater to see the opening night, and we'd have a reception. And this kid came along, and he loved all the old music, Sinatra and Dean Martin and all those. And so he said to his dad, I don't think I want to work in the air conditioning business, I'd like to sing. And he is a full-time singer now. And 7 or 8 years ago, we called Howard Cable to do a magnificent big band sound with the crooners. And we sent him an audio tape of him to Howard Cable. And Howard says, book him. And I said, Alex Moustakis is a guy with a lot of confidence. He's the only guy to book Howard Cable, 92 years old, and they're in advance. Howard was there the next year to conduct the orchestra. We had a big orchestra. It was spectacular. And we go through this thing. We're doing Evita this year. Spectacular show. Fiddler on the Loose. There's a young fellow named Jesse Grandmont who comes out of the London area. He and his sister are quite the amazing fiddlers. So they're fiddlers on the loose, and there'll be a lot of picking and grinning and country type, but upbeat. Then we're doing Fiddler on the Roof. And it's never been more appropriate right now than with the Russians kicking people out of Anatevka. In this show, they're kicking them out of Ukraine in real life, and they're running to Kiev, or Kiev, and that's what they do in this show. And I think, we haven't announced it yet, and I'm very close to convincing him, but Alex Moustakis is now old enough, he believes, to play Tevye. You ought to see him. He's an amazing performer. 3 years ago, he did Man of La Mancha, and brought the house down as Don Quixote. And then we're doing Kinky Boots for the young people and the happy people. Mary's Wedding. We're doing the new Canadian Curling Club, because we got to keep it Canadian, and that's a great show. We're doing Peter Pan, the Panto, and our pantos are fabulous. Big hits at Christmas in Kitchener, or in Waterloo and Cambridge, because people want them so bad. We even do them in the summer in Grand Bend. And then we're doing the Prom, which opens next week. And that's a story of young people who don't know what gender they are. It's a powerful show. And my granddaughter said, Grandpa, I want to go and see that with you. I said, okay. And she's studying biomedical science, and she knows more than I do. Rock of Ages is another show we're doing. Now there's one you gotta see. Shaboom. And the reason you have to see it was I was just cast in it. And it's a great show where 4 young guys are competing to earn a radio station recording contract. And they sing all the shaboom, shaboom, yeah, life could be a dream, sweetheart. And all those songs, there's about 30 songs in the show. And there was a part written for an off-stage voiceover radio announcer. And Alex says, I want to add a little extra pizzazz to that role, so I'm going to put him on stage and do a few more bits. Would you do that role? And now I said, oh, how would I do that? But it's a small role. Last year I had 28 pages of dialogue to memorize. This year it's just a few entrances and exits. And they made me a beautiful sparkly red jacket with a rainbow colored lapel and a red wig like my hair used to be. So I'm really looking forward to that. And that's the last 3 weeks in August in Drayton. And it's on sale now. And then we're doing the Wizard of Oz panto. We're doing Legally Blonde. We already did it through our youth academy. And I'll give you all these. You can read about them. Anyway, there are people who like to ask questions about who we are and what we do. Anybody here have any questions that I would try and respond to? Hearing none? Yes, sir.
Well, I think you should be sorry. You claim to be selling only the best ice cream.
Yes.
And in fact, it's not.
Oh, I know about Chapman. I never said it was the best. I said it was high quality. And that's all we have in our fridges. Yeah, they're an amazing family who've shown us how to be good Canadians after that big fire, and they just kept people going and made donations to charity. And Chapman's is a big freezer filler. Yeah, I saw a hand up, yes?
I would just like to mention, I've been taking my granddaughters for the last 4 or 5 years
To the panto?
to the panto, and this year we're branching out, they're a little older, so we're going to Shaboom. And it's a wonderful experience, and they look forward to their letter every Christmas. It goes in their Christmas present.
Oh, that's
with their
great.
tickets. Yeah.
Yeah, the pantos are an English tradition. And there'd be always some guy in drag. If you're in Florida, we couldn't do that. And we have people playing crazy characters. And there's adult humor and there's kids humor. And I took my little 10 and 8-year-old grandchildren, two little sweet girls who love theater and love dancing, and they were sitting there listening to the last panto we did, and they said, you know, I think some of those jokes are for old people. And yeah, but they're very, very popular. The pantos are the first thing that sells out to the walls months in advance.
I think the thing that I like is that the whole audience is involved.
And everybody, the kids and adults, everybody's encouraged to boo the villain and cheer the heroes. And they come out and they the wicked witch or mean purple, and they give a little boo, and this is kind of, is that the best you can do? And then they boo, that's better. And the kids get right into it fast. And then there's always a point where they're doing a big scene and costume change, and the curtain comes in, and a guy comes out on stage and talks to everybody. And he says, wouldn't it be nice if we had some kids up here? When we started, we had to beg the kids. Do you want to come up and see Uncle Tom or whatever? And now the kids run to the stage. They know, they've been to lots of panels. And we get 5 or 6. And he interviews them, what's your name? Mary. That's a nice name. And then she said, what's your name? Really? He's playing a character. It's amazing how kids come right up. The light brings them to. It's a very good experience. Yes, Paul?
Did I read a while back that Drayton is involved in the youth theater as well? To help
Yes.
the young?
Yeah, we've just built during COVID a place called the Youth Academy. It's in Waterloo, right near the expressway, right near the St. Jacobs Country Playhouse. And it's for kids of all possibilities. Kids who are crippled, as they used to say, kids who are challenged, kids who are blind, kids in wheelchairs, and you should see how it's going over. We did Legally Blonde with this group of kids, from 50 kids from 14 schools, and they put on a week-long show at the St. Jacobs Country Playhouse, and it sold out with standing ovations every night. Of course, that's easy when you have parents and grandparents. But the director we have is an amazing guy. You should get him to speak to you sometime. David Conley. He's the associate artistic director to Alex. And he was the first person ever to be cast on the Broadway stage as a double amputee. And when he has a story, I won't tell it all to you, but like a little bit, when he was born with no legs beneath the knees. There were little stubs there that didn't work. And his father didn't like and his father left. And he and his mother were alone, this poor little kid with no bottom half of his legs. And she took him from here to there to here to there, and finally she went to the Shriners Hospital in Montreal and asked them to help her. And they said, we don't do little kids, we do after 5 or 6. Well, she said, I can't go anywhere else now. I'm done. You gotta do something. And the Shriners are an advanced form of masonry, and they're very completely open and giving and free. And they said, okay, we had a meeting, we're gonna keep you. They turned a closet into a bedroom for this little boy, a little baby. And he lived the first 4 years of his life in that hospital. And they made him prosthetics. And he got tied into the amputee, the War Amps program, and he's the happiest guy you ever saw. He's always got a smile, and he can sing. And he went to Broadway to audition, and the director said, I can't take my eyes off you, the way you dance. It's amazing, he said, the way you dance. He says, like your feet are just manufactured a little different than the rest of us. And then he went out and he pulled out his pant legs and showed the director 2 artificial legs. And he didn't tell him ahead of time. Wow, they were blown away. He's performed on Broadway 3 times. And just this year, he was so happy to be invited to go down, and the first woman double amputee was cast on stage this year on Broadway. Anyway, David, he has such an understanding for everybody and their special needs, and anybody who, we have letters from parents and grandparents who said, by gosh, we sent our grandson to that youth program, and he wouldn't lift his chin off his chest, and he talked to people like this, and now he's high. The kids are just coming right out and becoming happy people. And this theater youth program, we know a lot of them aren't going to be stars. A lot of them don't even want to perform on stage, but they like to build sets. They like to work behind the stage as stage directors. Some of them like to direct, some of them like to play. And it's amazing how these kids, it's something that the schools went and canceled a lot of these great music programs, and we're replacing it. And we have a board member, Willie Hefner, of Hefner Toyota family, and they bought a big old factory in Waterloo, and his son is in the cabinet business. He makes beautiful kitchen cabinets, bathroom cabinets, tables and doors, but the whole back half of the factory they didn't need. And that's where we are. And all during COVID, we converted it into the most modern, beautiful place with 3 stages upstairs, elevator, mirrored walls, cushioned floors for dancing, and offices and suites downstairs with washrooms, and oh, it's a magnificent place. And it's busy all the time, and it was really unique. We got a call from a lady in Guelph that I know you got this youth academy, but when the kids are at school, do you think they could do something for seniors? And so now we're going to have a seniors program as well, where people are coming to sing and dance and have fun. And so that's a long answer to that question. Yes?
Just interested, how are ticket sales going this year?
Oh, ticket sales, yes. First day we opened this year with our new computerized system, and our box offices were all manned, and everybody ready to go. The first day we sold $350,000 worth. And that is a record for the first day. We're about 10% behind where we were in 2019, our best year. We did 250,000 tickets that year on 7 stages. And I expect we'll achieve that again this year, because once the word is out, once these get in everybody's hands, and the marketing takes place online and in the media. One of the things I did years ago when I worked there was I would get all these radio stations to promote or to be a sponsor, and we wouldn't ask them for money, we'd just give us your unsold airtime. And so if you go through, you'll see radio stations in London, Kitchener, and all over who are sponsors, and that helps promote who we are, what we're about. I saw another hand. Yes, Janet.
Does the size of your stages attract actors? I would think, my guess is that there's some actors that just would love to appear in small venues like that.
That's absolutely right. Our biggest theater is Grand Bend, the main stage, 650, but a big balcony, so they're not far. And Drayton, Penetang, Kings Wharf, and St. Jacob's Playhouse are 400 seats each. The schoolhouse is 100 seats, very intimate, beautiful spot. And Cambridge is 500 seats, and they're all very intimate spaces. You can see their faces, you can see the spit flying in them. And they like it when they can feel the audience right there in St. Jacob's. And we built an orchestra pit where the front 3 rows of seats can flop down, and we have an orchestra right there in front of you. But we never use it that way, because people want to sit right up to the stage, and with today's technology, we don't need it. In Drayton, the music room is downstairs behind the stage. The theater is up here, the music room is down there.
But it's live.
But it's live.
Yeah.
And we have TV monitors hung in the theater on the face of the balcony, so we can see the director give us the downbeat, and they have cameras on us so they can see us making our entrances and exits. And so the music, they were watching on a big TV screen, and the sound is fantastic because it's all piped in absolutely according to what we need. For the drums not to be too hard, and the horns to not be loud, and they balance it so well. And the sound guy sits in every theater and rides the levels and plays it like a piano. And so that's the way it is. In Grand Bend, the music is underneath the stage where the old pit was, but we never show them because they don't need it. They've got a big TV camera, and the director watches that. It's really quite something. Anybody else? I'll get out of here. You probably want to go out and enjoy this day. I would like to thank you very much. I'm going to quote somebody. You should always finish a speech with a very clever piece, and I quote Aristotle. He said, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not an act, but a habit." We get into good habits, and like Paul reminded me, I urge you to remind yourself, drive safely, because for every mile of road, there's 2 miles of ditch.